Welcome to another episode of Dishonorable Mention. We're here with the crew, ready to talk about all the things that interest you and turn you on. Right, Chris?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't turn me off right in the middle of turning me on, man. Hey, let's start by talking about the K-12 education system in the state of Florida. It's a topic that's near and dear to Chris's heart. Chris, explain why this topic is so near and dear to your heart.
Well, currently I'm the K-12 Education Appropriations Chair in the House, and I also serve on two other education committees. And so it's a passion of mine. And I'll preface it by saying that I was a public school kid from the time I was in kindergarten to the time I graduated from UCF. I was always in the public schools. But I think that times have changed since the 80s and 90s. And I think that now there are different ways to educate a kid, and not one way is more correct than another way. And I think that kids thrive in different situations and circumstances.
So there's been a lot of talk about school vouchers. Governor DeSantis recently came out and wants to create a new program that would create scholarship dollars for parents who want to send their kids to private schools. Chris, do you worry about that kind of system, which was struck down previously by the state Supreme Court, hurting the public education system? As you know the law better than I do. The state must constitutionally provide a strong K-12 public education system. It seems like those things would be in conflict with each other.
Well, I think that by virtue of giving families the education savings accounts and vouchers, those are the same as tax dollars and public dollars. And so the funding is still there. I think that it's been proven that not every public school in Florida is the same. Your newspaper a couple years ago did a very important series on failing schools in St. Petersburg. And a lot of what the legislature has done since then has been as a result of the Failure Factory series that the Tampa Bay Times uncovered. And I believe they won many awards for that. And so whether it's in South St. Pete, whether it's in rural areas of Florida, or in some of the other areas like in Jacksonville, there's a school in downtown Jacksonville that has failed for more than 12 years in a row. There was an entire county, Jefferson County, that had two public schools that failed for more than 10 years in a row. And as a result of their failure and their corruption in Jefferson County, there's now a charter school that has taken over that district and merged both of the schools into one, and they now operate as the only school in Jefferson. And so, I don't believe, and it's not just my opinion, but opinion of a lot of Republicans in Tallahassee, and including some Democrats, that a child zip code should not determine whether or not they are able to go to a good public school or not.
Well, I've heard that talking point many times, and my greatest fear is this. I think you're going to end up picking and choosing who gets to leave these struggling schools. There's no doubt that there are failing schools in certain rural areas and certain urban areas. But as it stands right now, we don't have enough charter and private schools to accommodate every student. And to me, it's as if the school is on fire. And instead of going in and putting out the fire, you want to just go in, pick a handful of kids and say, you get to leave the burning school. The rest of you guys got to stay while the school burns down. I mean, fix the school, put out the fire instead of trying to create an alternate system. Just make the system we have work for those kids who are in failing schools. Why can't we do that?
Because there's a tremendous lack of equity. According to the United Teachers of Dade County, charter schools account for only 12% of our students in schools in Florida, but they receive 3 times more state construction and maintenance funds to upkeep their properties than public schools do.
That is actually a brand new statistic. And the reason why the construction dollars went up is because school districts were supposed to share those dollars with charter schools, and they were not. So the legislature then just started giving money directly to charter schools. Charter schools in Florida, by Florida statute, are considered public schools. School districts are supposed to treat charter schools like a public school. Many of them do not, and so that's where part of the problem is. District school boards open up charter schools, and they can also close them at any time they wish for any reason why they wish.
Well, I don't know about any reason. They do hold the charter schools to a certain standard.
It's just not the same standard as public schools, because that's my biggest issue is that there's not equity.
Well, the charter schools are supposed to be held to the same standard. It's the private schools that are not. It's the private schools that are not subjected to standardized state assessment tests. And
But that's not true either.
If we're going to give money to private schools, we need to level the playing field and force them into the same accountability measures that we're using for public schools.
But private schools can operate longer, both in the school year than a public school. They can also operate longer in a school day than a public school. So by nature, there are things that private schools can do that public schools cannot do.
Well, like not teaching to the test. I mean, they could have a longer school day, but if they have to teach to the test, trust me, a lot of the things that they are using right now to produce bright kids would have to give way to teaching to the test. And the other advantage private schools have, and I know this to be a fact for even some of the best quote unquote private schools in Tampa Bay, is that they get to pick and choose the students in their enrollment, and they test kids before they admit them,
which some charter schools do as well.
And if the kids don't do well on the test, they can't get in. If the kids, a lot of times, if they don't come from a 2-parent home where the parents can volunteer and show up all the time, they don't get in. I mean, if I got to go in and pick the very best apples, then yes, I would be considered the best apple farmer in the nation. But what's going to happen to the other apples that just need a little more polish, a little more shine? They're going to get left behind.
And there are also some private schools that will not take a kid if they are not in poverty. There are some schools that, in order for you to get in, you have to live in poverty. You have to have free or reduced lunch. So it kind of works both ways. That and some charter schools are specific to income levels, and if you have too high of an income, you're ineligible to go anyways. And so Academy Prep in Tampa Bay is a perfect example of that. 100% of those kids are in poverty. And, it's either you could go to Academy Prep or you can go to a failure factory. And I've seen firsthand the work that they've done there.
What percentage of students in that area that Academy Prep serves can attend the school?
Well, I don't know how many kids are that live in that.
The thing is, it's a remarkably small percentage.
Right.
So that's like saying, if you give everybody, that there's always that old analogy, like, why do celebrities look so great? Well, they've got their personal trainers and they've got their chef and they've got this. If you give everybody absolutely everything, of course, your quality of life, your outcomes are going to be better. The same note, when I'm sitting here, running 2 businesses, taking care of 2 kids, I don't make it to the gym that often. My meals aren't that gourmet. I'm just doing the best I can, treading water. And am I successful? Sure. But am I at the level I'd be if I had every tool and resource put in my lap? Absolutely not. And it's the same sort of deal. We're not giving all children the fair shake. Do I think Academy Prep has value? 100%. It's an amazing model that has proved tremendous outcomes, but it is not what we can stake our educational plan on.
So it sounds like the answer is to have more Academy Preps.
Well, to have more academy preps, you would have to eliminate state standardized testing in the public schools.
So
you could put out the fire.
And the
if you allow those public schools that are struggling to operate on with the same rules and the same playing field as academy prep. But the legislature doesn't do that. Why? Because the legislature wants to drive those schools out of business. And they're succeeding.
The legislature has eliminated some standardized testing. There's standardized testing that comes from the state, and there's also standardized testing that comes from the district. The legislature can't eliminate district tests. Only the school district can.
But I think one of the things that we've talked about before that I think is really important, and we can throw this ball back and forth all day long, but the thing is, and I noticed this, and I live in a zip code that's desirable, and my kids walked into kindergarten on the first day, and it was not equitable. And a lot of what Ernest has talked about that he thinks is really important is the education that actually begins before kindergarten. And I think that's a place where we all need to think, the 0 through 5, the world is very different for some of the kids that walked into my children's kindergarten class, and that is devastating to me. The world should not be unfair for one 5-year-old over the other, and far too often, even in our ideal zip codes, that's the case.
Yeah, we can't keep accepting the results of the parent lottery just because you are born to parents who are uninterested or uncaring or who lack the wherewithal to put you on the right path before kindergarten. That we can't just shrug our shoulders at that. Carla, I think it's time for you to weigh in and let us know how you feel about this debate. Where are we in terms of public education from where you stand?
Well, I mean, at this point, I wouldn't send my kids to a Florida public school. So I'm kind of on the fence because I see value in public education, and I'm absolutely privileged enough to be able to send my kids to a good private school. But even the great public schools in my neighborhood and in my area, I just wouldn't because of curriculum. I don't want my kids learning from a system that teaches to the test. So I think the answer is more academy preps. I think the answer is take that model and apply it to more schools, whether they be charter or regular public schools. But I think academy prep is a good model. We've seen that it works. And I mean, it could work in other districts too, regardless if somebody is socioeconomically disadvantaged or if someone comes from a very wealthy district. I think that model does work.
There you have it. So Representative Latvala is going to go to Tallahassee. He's going to eliminate state standardized testing. He's going to help the struggling public schools become more like academy prep. Problem solved. Thank you, Chris. I'm glad you with the rest of us on this.
I would just like to say my kids are having the most remarkable public school education, and I'd like to thank the Pinellas County Schools for providing those options.
Yeah, my two sons, one is a graduate of Florida State University. One is a graduate of the University of Central Florida, where I think you went, Chris. And I give great credit to the public education system. But I also realized that my wife and I, with the help of some people in that system, helped us navigate around potential pitfalls. And we had that knowledge, and not every parent has that.
Was Deneen a product of the public school system in Florida?
I'm uncertain.
Who is this Deneen you speak of?
We have a call out. Looking forward to having her here.
An old friend from the mid-'80s.
I know of no Deneen.
Oh, onwards and upwards. So we wake up this morning and the current president, Donald Trump, is tripping out because Saturday Night Live has gone too far. I want to talk about the fact, and I've got lots of friends who are professional comics, but I'm also representing the left and my snowflake brothers and sisters. So I want to know, do we think that should we start censoring comedy? Like, is there a line? Is there a comfort level? And I just want to say with unequivocally that I saw the Saturday Night Live thing, and I think that not only is his concept of it being too far, #ridiculous, but it was completely relevant. It was on point, and it was funny as heck. I really enjoyed watching it. Thoughts?
I think the president's problem is that he never sees any comedians making fun of Democrats, although some have. And I'd like to watch a show with Samantha Bee on TBS, and she is, for the most part, very liberal and will make fun of Republicans, but she also takes her shots at Democrats. And so I reject that notion that comedians are colluding, which is what the president implied, that they're colluding against conservatives and against Republicans. But there is a larger subject about the boundaries that comedians need to meet. The boundaries seem to be closing in on them. There seems to be less acceptance of being outrageous or profane or insulting towards certain groups.
Do you think there's anything that should be off limits?
You know, it's hard to say. It's hard to say because comedy is all about pushing the boundaries of good taste. Comedy is all about going beyond what we think is allowable. It's an art. So I will say, though, if you go too far, if you attack the wrong group, you could end up in a lot of trouble. And it does seem to be. I don't think you want to make fun of people who are grieving over a mass shooting, as Louis C.K. did with the Parkland students. I think that was too far. But I don't know if you can define what is too far and what's not. It's kind of like obscenity. I know it when I see it.
Yeah, and I think. Going after anybody who's a minor, for comedic purposes, whether it's a politician's kid that's a minor, like,
says
Donald
the recovering
Trump's.
politician's kid.
No, but like Donald Trump, I'm 37 years old, but
A recovering politician's kid.
Donald Trump's 10-year-old kid is different than going after Eric or Don Jr. or Ivanka or even Tiffany that nobody has ever seen.
She is so sad. I really like her.
But, and I also think that rule number one when you're a politician is that you have to have thick skin. I have thick skin both literally and figuratively. So, you kind of have to roll with the punches. I don't agree with a lot of what SNL does, but it's funny. And when Barack Obama was president, they went after him and made jokes about him. And so it's just all...
Yeah, they ripped Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the same episode, but nobody's crying about that. Why? Because they're not freaking babies trying to deflect from their responsibility or lack thereof with wasting our billions of dollars.
Right. And I think that, as soon as Donald Trump started giving attention to Saturday Night Live is when they started using women to as characters in his administration. So Spicer, if you remember,
women to portray,
like
the male
Spicer
people in
had
this
Melissa
administration.
McCarthy.
That was so
Jeff
That was
Sessions,
amazing.
Jeff
Just talk
Sessions
about that for a minute.
had a female portray him, and there's been other instances, and and I think they do that on purpose just to get under his skin, but then he gives them even more attention by the way that he reacts to
I don't
it.
think they care enough to get under his skin. Honestly, I don't think when they're in that writing room that the motivation is what can we do to piss off the president. I don't
I
think that
they
that's
have
the motivation.
now because they know that they piss him off, and so it's just they keep doing it. And I think a lot of what Alec Baldwin does, I think he does it just to get under Trump's skin, which there's nothing wrong with that.
I think he does it because he's created an iconic character that is masterful. Which, P.S., by the way, I do watch Saturday Night Live pretty religiously, and my favorite segment is always the Weekend Update. I don't know if y'all watch it.
I like
but
Weekend
love
Update
it.
too.
I'm
Yeah, I
a
like
Kenan
them.
Thompson fan. Anything that he does is brilliant.
Yeah, and the longest running cast member currently.
Oh, really? Didn't know.
And a part-time Tampa resident, I'm told.
Yeah.
Breaking news right here, right now. What part
And
of
a
Tampa?
future interviewee on the podcast.
I don't know about that, but I think Keenan has been spotted at DATS and some other local establishments right around here. So, Carla, what do you think? You reveling over Saturday Night Live?
I watch it sometimes, but I usually watch the updates in the morning when people put it on Facebook or Twitter and I'm scrolling through. That's when I'll see the highlights of it. But I think comedians have the right to go as far as they want as long as it's not inciting violence against people. So if I'm at a show and someone's like, going after one particular person or one particular group and that causes violence, or they're outright saying, hey, go beat this demographic up or something like that. Yeah, I think that's not a good thing to do.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that. The current president uses that to incite violence, but it ain't comedy. What it is it's turning into a rise in hate crimes across the country. And that's the problem. I don't care about comics. I think comics can be held accountable for what they say. I think if they say something horrific, they can be held accountable for it and stop. That's their decision. I think when you're the leader of the free world and you say journalists are the devil and this and that, and you literally discredit and act like they are enemies of the state, you have to have some responsibility for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, but that's not comedy. That's just a lone person with, on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So that happens to be the president of the United States, which is also dangerous. But it's not like he's doing that for any sort of comedic purpose,
right. So in terms of comedy, are we as a society growing too sensitive?
Yes, absolutely.
Becca?
I think people should.
I don't know. I think in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I think we have a responsibility to be more educated. I think that we have to be accountable for what we say, but in some ways, I think we're really pushing the boundaries, and I think that that's good and healthy.
Chris, are we becoming too sensitive as a society?
Absolutely. Everybody just needs to take a chill pill.
Says the privileged white man.
Becca mentioned the rise in hate crimes, and the other effect is it could lead to a rise in fake hate crimes, as we've seen with the guy from Empire.
Ooh, boy. Opening up.
Really want to
I don't know. Do we want to go there? I don't know. Is that
no? We're going there
in a
now.
Story arc? I mean, that's always a thing, right? When something happens, it makes the news, and then other kind of counter narratives are like, well, did this really happen? What's the intricacies of the story? Blah blah blah. So I think this is like a normal thing we see when something happens like this, like the conspiracy theories. But I mean, if that's true, that's so disappointing.
But what about all the people of color and all the people of gender
that
and
now will not
diversity?
be believed
Right.
because of this?
Absolutely, will not be.
They weren't believed before.
Even more so now. It's not helping.
And first of all, that hasn't been proved that it was a hoax. But the point of the story is the fact that we love to grapple on. We find somebody who's a rape survivor, and then it's proven that something part of their story was false. And that's who we cling to.
Yeah.
But we ignore the hundreds of thousands of truths. And until we want to hear the truth, we have to stop holding on to the exception.
I don't think we're holding on to the exception. I think we're looking at what's going on in the news cycle and how that's being kind of taken up in pop culture. So I think when you have something like this happen, it's really detrimental to people who, millions of people across the country where this has happened to. So you gotta acknowledge that this is really, really bad if it's proven to be true.
Well, I think one thing the media grapples with is trying to be, quote unquote, fair and balanced. And I know, I get it. But the reason these stories, these false narratives get so much attention is because they don't want to be accused of being biased. And there's a great debate in journalism circles about, have we gone too far to avoid the accusation of being biased? And what we strive for, or what journalists should be striving for, in my opinion, is not objectivity or bias. It should be intellectual honesty. And there's a difference. If you're writing a story about a decision that President Trump has made that is not being warmly received, that story is going to be critical of the president. It doesn't make it biased. It doesn't make it, it doesn't bring its objectivity into question. It's intellectually honest. If he decides to declare a national emergency to build a wall, there's going to be people in that story, if you report it properly, who are criticizing him. That's intellectual honesty. That's what you have to strive for. So these false narratives get a lot of attention because they're trying to balance and fight against the allegations that they haven't been objective, in my opinion.
That and the wall's a freaking sham, but that's a whole nother story based on no facts, evidence, or science, but just to incite hate.
other than keeping drug dealers and human traffickers out of the United States.
Except for the vast majority of them enter by plane. And my guess is we're not going to build a wall that is higher than our flying zone.
That would be something, though, wouldn't it? That would be something.
Hey, if they could encapsulate the United States in a glass dome.
Oh, there was a Stephen King movie about that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where the cow got split in half? Is that right? Am I thinking the right thing?
I don't recall a cow getting split in half.
I don't watch Stephen King. It makes me too scared, but I do like him on Twitter. He is wicked
He's
funny.
hysterical. He lives in Sarasota. We should have him on.
Call him.
I will. He's always at the
He
Columbia.
passed away.
He did not die. He's definitely
I thought he
Stephen, we
was.
love you. If you're listening, you are not dead, and we're very happy you're not dead.
He's hanging out with Betty White. They're both alive and well.
His son is actually writing novels now also. So we can come down to Sarasota, Mr. King. Let me be respectful. If you like to be a guest, we'd be glad to meet you at the Rusty Bucket at the mall there, right off the interstate.
Oh my God.
Just let us know.
Can't we do better by
The
him?
Rusty Bucket?
Oh, the Rusty Bucket's good.
I've never
man.
been to the Rusty Bucket.
Oh no, it's.
I've been to the Blue Rooster, the jazz place down there.
I have not been to the Blue
Oh, it's
Rooster.
so good.
What
They have
was
a
the
great
place
gospel
that we went
brunch.
to? That Ernest, made us turn
Barbecue
around
place?
on the interstate to go to, and it was good.
Y'all never invite me.
Was that the
We
Rusty
did
Bucket?
invite you.
Nope, didn't get invited.
No, that was
Nope, no invite.
See, I'm having a moment now.
See, because it didn't happen. That's
It was
why.
a barbecue place.
I know it's a
It's,
barbecue place.
Famous Dave's Barbecue. Thank you. It's a chain, but it's really good. And you were invited. You couldn't make it. That was our big Miami excursion. Don't you remember?
Yes.
Touched at least one life that night.
And Chris, what else did you touch that night? That's what I really want to know.
No, we don't want to know the answer.
I really
to that
don't want to know.
question.
Nope.
We really
That's
don't.
when we learned that for Ernest, 5:30 really means 6.
Yes. Magical.
It's Hooper time, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, there's everything wrong with it.
To kill me, and then in self-defense, in a heroic act of self-defense, trying to save me and my 2 dogs, I am going to end
And
up
the city of Tampa.
accidentally hurting them to the point of no return, and I will end up on death row.
All right, so now we understand why you're on death row. What is your last meal?
Probably I'm not a sweets person, but probably the carrot cake from Charlie's with the old school white chocolate macadamia nut ice cream they used to make in house, and they don't make it anymore. Now it's just like some stupid bullshit vanilla
Charlie's
they put on it.
Steakhouse? Oh, yeah.
But the carrot cake, it's more like a hummingbird cake, and it's just really yummy. And they have 5 slices, and they cover it with a sweetened vanilla infused, like a whipped cream type thing. So you can't really see anything. It's just a big white dome and some caramel that they make in house. It's pretty good.
Is that it? That's all you want?
Well, wait, you didn't say like I can have a 5-course meal here. It's just
your
one.
last meal.
Your last
last
meal.
one.
Get whatever you want.
Okay, so I'll do that. I'll work backwards. So that would be my dessert. Entree, probably. Oh, I don't know. Maybe like I could go really basic and say like a Queensland salad from Outback, but that's probably too basic and sad. So I'll probably go
Well, you're
with.
about to die, so I mean, nobody.
Yeah,
no,
people would judge me. People would absolutely judge me. Probably.
Can't believe she got a Queensland salad from Outback
Yeah.
for her last meal.
I would say that about somebody. I would criticize them.
gauche.
So I would, yeah, because I'm bougie. I'm bougie and basic, so I would never do that.
I don't even know what a
Probably
Queensland salad is.
it's delicious.
I don't.
It is with a tangy tomato vinaigrette. Oh my
I'm
god! Oh my
unfamiliar.
good god! Anyway, probably like a sushi platter from Soho Sushi or Kelp. I like them a lot. So
Well, I'm
it.
trying to live, so I got a whole bunch of things I want for my last meal. They're gonna have to send out a team of people. They're gonna have to comb the nation
I
to
think
get
you-
everything
I
I
think you have a
want.
time limit.
Man. Do I?
I think you do.
Not for the scenario. Go free. Tell us what you want. Tell me what you
Well,
want. What you really, really want.
You worried about what people are gonna say about you.
You should.
Let me start with the Cheddar Bay biscuits from Red Lobster. I'll invite all kinds of criticism by putting that on my list.
They are very good.
Oh,
They are delicious.
I gotta have one before I go, man. At least one. I'm also gonna want a Crystal cheeseburger because I grew up on Crystal cheeseburgers, man. So I'm gonna need one of those. Let me think, man. What else do
This
I?
is like a Midwestern tapas.
What else do I want on my list, man? I got stuff.
Big spender
man.
Ernest for his last meal.
Oh no, yeah. I'm taking it back to the old school because I'm an old fool.
You want a churro from the skating rink while we're at it?
I tell you what, though, I would want a New York steamer from Firehouse Subs.
I'm unfamiliar with that is, but I'm just gonna let it ride.
Oh, it's excellent. You want one too? Well,
I
you
don't
don't
think
eat
I do.
meat, so you probably don't want.
Well, what's in it? I've never had a New York steamer.
It.
God,
Let's hear it.
say
Come on,
that, I
let's
feel
go.
like we're making a poop joke. It's so
It's
uncomfortable.
pastrami and corned beef with
Okay.
Thousand Island dressing and Swiss cheese.
And is it grilled or is
It's
it
steamed.
steamed? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hence the name New York steamer.
Yeah, hence New York steamer.
Got it.
Oh gosh, I don't know, man.
Why were you
like
on
I have
death row?
I have all these things. I don't know why I would be on death row, man. I
Plagiarism?
no.
Well, the way this current administration is going, that could be a death penalty crime real soon.
Being a member of the fake news media?
No, that won't get you on death row. I don't know. I'm a nice guy.
We haven't found Deneen yet. Maybe that's where she
I
went.
couldn't hurt anybody, man. Not intentionally. Well, maybe if I got really, you wouldn't like me if I was angry.
Well, that's kind of the way we all are. We're
Like-
all such nice people and we're such good friends until you like cross somebody we love. And then you better call for backup.
Yeah.
Because
There'll be a horse head in your bed real fast.
except for Carla would never harm an animal. It would be a synthetic horse head. But nonetheless.
Of course, if I ended up on death row, I know that Chris would diligently work to get me a pardon right when I'm finishing my last meal. So I'm not even going to be worried about it because I know you got my back, right?
Absolutely.
So what's your last meal?
Well, I would start at Island Way Grill and
Oh, I love Island Way.
get some sushi from Island Way Grill. And then I would drive down to Courtside.
You're in prison.
I don't think you can
Somebody's
drive.
making this up
I'm
for you.
out on work. I'm out on release because it's my last day. And then I
I don't
stop
think you know
at
how this works.
I stop at Courtside and I'm gonna get the franchise roll. And then I'm gonna head on over, or the catering, the Uber Eats that goes to the prison can go to Ruth's Chris and get me a nice steak, maybe a New York strip or a prime rib.
That's a little fatty.
Well, have you looked at me? And I'm on death row, so it doesn't matter. And I'm also going to get some lobster, get a little lobster tail, and then a baked potato, and then maybe some vanilla ice cream. And I'm on death row because I was framed by the teachers union.
The teachers union is a lovely group of people. Sometimes. Becca, what do you got lined up? Lots of veggies?
Well, my favorite food is gnocchi or gnocchi, however you choose to say it. So I'd probably like that. And
Is that the fake rice?
no? It's a potato
pasta.
dumpling.
Oh, I love pasta.
They're magical, and so I'd like that with some grilled asparagus. Let's see. I would like a fattoush salad. That makes me super happy. And maybe some other tapas types items with a Spanish infusion. I'd love the Colombia 1905 salad, 86 the meat.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think I would round it. I'd like a lot of fresh bread with butter because, I mean, go big or go home. And then for dessert, I think I'd like a really kick-ass ice cream sundae. I think that's what I'm going down. But I clearly went down because I was involved in some big conspiracy that overthrew the government or something like that.
The feminist revolution.
Yes, I was marching with the feminist revolution, and in today's society, we were held accountable by penalty of death. Kind of like, what's the show with the Red Hoods?
Handmaiden's Tale.
Yes, that I'm
No
scared to
one
watch.
mentioned a grouper sandwich from Frenchie's or a Cuban sandwich from
Michelle's.
one of your many, like Michelle Faedo.
I showed up for the Columbia. If that's not Tampa,
You did. Yeah, you got us there. I think I would add the Frenchie's grouper sandwich to my list. No one. Yeah, no one's
I don't eat
feeling it.
meat. I don't care about that.
It's grouper. It's fish.
I eat
I
nothing
could,
with
whenever
a
I'm
face.
down in Island Way Grill, I can swing by Frenchie's and get you a grouper sandwich.
When he's out on parole.
We might be on death row together. So
That is true.
Well, that would really screw your pardon process.
would. But I'd get my grouper sandwich.
Hey, Ernest, if you could have any let me get the English language right. If you could have and run for and be victorious any elected official position, what would you do? Where do you think you'd be best?
Oh, I'd say governor just because I'm so passionate about trying to fix the school system. And boy, I don't know if we want to get back on that again.
But we're going to be fixing it over the next 2 to 4 years.
Fix and destroy are two very different words, Chris.
Okay, so you would be Governor Hooper. Carla, what role in government would you most like to play?
Probably lieutenant governor.
Oh.
Probably, yeah.
Lieutenant governors do nothing.
No, that's not true.
Our
That is
current
not
lieutenant governor is changing the role of being a lieutenant governor.
Yeah,
It
I
happens
would.
when you put a woman in the
I think
office.
it would be interesting to do a job that traditionally people don't do much, and then make it something awesome and make it something cool. So I would
You
find
sound like
something.
my
to do.
husband who always talks about lowered expectations. If you
No,
lower your
I don't think it's low hanging fruit. I think there's a great opportunity there to kind of carry out some great policies to be visible in ways that a lieutenant governor hasn't been before, and set myself up for total world domination in the next election cycle.
It's pinky in the brain.
Chris, what's your dream elected official job? And you
It
can't
would
say the
be-
one you currently have.
Well, it is to be the state representative for the 67th House District, because I get to be your state representative, Becca.
And if that's not the sacrifice of a public official, I do not know what is.
He represents you. It must be a warm feeling.
It is. It feels real good deep inside. I think I'd want to be a state senator if I could do anything.
Why?
Because I feel like you get to really advocate for your state and do stuff here, but then you also get to work on country-wide issues and have a platform where you can do both. And
You mean a
United
U.S.
States senator,
Civics 101 brought to you by Becca Teeter.
didn't I say United States Senator?
You
No, it said state senator.
Oh, maybe that's foreshadowing. I
Oh, wow.
hashtag
Nice.
2022. But no, I mean, I think a United States Senator would be the best of both worlds for creating lasting impact.
That's also a good Hannah Montana song.
I've never seen an episode of Hannah Montana, but I will take your word.
Best of both worlds. yeah, take my word on it. No one wants to be president.
No.
Chris, you want to be president, don't you? President like
Sure,
Lala.
yeah, if Becca's a U.S. Senator, I would love to be the president. She would meet the veto pin early and often.
Oh, man.
President Teeter?
No.
No?
Nobody
No,
qualified
no
wants this
interest.
job.
I want to be a part of a team. I don't want to ride solo.
You can be part of my team of rivals. Make you Secretary of State, so you have to go across the world.
You get to go to Bhutan. I hear Bhutan's nice. You been to Bhutan?
I've not, as much as I travel this nation, I am not a worldly traveler. I have not seen much of this world. I'm a little bummed about that. Like, I have been to pretty much every nook and cranny of this country, but I have not rolled much beyond our borders.
All right, we did our death row meals. We did our fantasy elected offices. Let's close by, where do you want to go in the world? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world do you want to go, Becca?
My next trip that I'm going on that I'm actually really excited about is I'm going to Israel in November. So I'm pumped about that. I've never been there, and I think it's going to be
Are you going to
really
be like
cool.
those girls in the commercial who dance around the sunny?
I have no idea what you're
you
talking
haven't
about.
That is a
seen those
great campaign.
commercials? the Tel Aviv Jerusalem tourist commercials?
They're amazing. They are basically Instagram on
Like
steroids.
these beautiful women dancing to Sunny. Sunny. We gotta get you some more TV time, man.
Yeah, no. So I'm going to Israel in November, so I'm holding tight. That's something I've wanted to do for a long time.
That's a good one. I would say either Israel, Hawaii, or
Just as an FYI, Hawaii is a part of America, and we talked about other countries. So
He said anywhere in the world. Last I
Yeah, I
checked,
did
America
say
was part of the world.
I did say we're in the world,
And so I would say,
but we were kind of thinking more internationally.
well,
Chris, but
or
go
like
ahead.
a place like Bora Bora, or like an exotic island.
Carla, where are you going?
Antarctica.
Why?
Yeah. I really want to go to Antarctica. It's cold. It's really cold. But one of the things I really want to do is go on one of those research expeditions with like a team that's studying global warming or penguins or polar bears or something, and just see how people live and kind of photograph nature and be able to be in one of the places that is kind of untouched by humans.
this is super off-brand for you, but I
Super
like
off-brand,
that. It's,
yeah.
I like that you're pivoting a little bit.
Yeah. I really want to go to places that really aren't touched by humans that much, because I think it's
Well,
cool.
then go over to Chris's house. I'm just kidding. I'm sure he's touched.
No, you're not.
You're not kidding.
Friend,
Totally
man would not
serious.
appreciate that.
I want to go to Australia.
I almost said
I was
Australia.
thinking Australia,
I almost said that. But you know, some fun fact for you. Did you know that Australia is the number one place that people from the Tampa Bay area go? And I know this because, or at least it was in the 90s, when the Outback team was making their brand and figuring out, we wanted to do a theme restaurant. What do we want it to be a theme of? Well, they did some market research and they noticed in South Tampa and Palmacia, like that area where the first Outback was, the number one place where people went to vacation was Australia. So that is how Outback got its brand.
That's fascinating. And let me now add Bloomin' Onion to my death row meal list.
So I guess we're going to have to wrap this up and head to Outback for some Queensland salad and a bloomin' onion.
Yeah.
And, I enjoy their sauteed mushrooms if we're going to. And I like the bread.
You know, you joking around, but we could actually do that.
I'm not above and
I
beyond.
think Bloomin' Brands would sponsor an episode if we did that.
Can we get some bang bang shrimp?
Probably.
And I bet you Kenan Thompson likes Outback too.
He's probably there right now.
We should go see him.
Can you name 3 cast members of Saturday Night Live?
Seriously, let's start with the Weekend Update with Michael Che and Colin Jost.
Excellent.
Then you have Kenan Thompson.
That's 3. Ding.
Congratulations. And you picked 2 people of color. I'm so impressed.
Can you name any women on the show?
They got Tina Fey.
And that's a wrap.
Kate McKinnon.
Yeah, she's
she played
so
Hillary.
good. No,
Yeah.
she's so good.
She's so good.
And the other one, the brunette.
The heavy one.
No, she's not heavy. There's a
Adie
blonde and a
Bryant.
Adie
brunette.
Bryant.
No,
Adie
that's
Bryant
not her.
is-
No, Adie Bryant is.
The one that played the Bachelorette contestant that was on Weekend Update. That skit. That girl is not named.
No, that's not
No.
Adie Bryant. I know
No,
what
it's
you're
the other
talking about,
one.
but I
She's
can't-
hysterical. The one that was in the movie with Kristen Bell in the Girl Scouts movie.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I do love Leslie Jones.
Oh, yeah.
I like Leslie Jones too, but that's not who I was talking about. No, this girl looks like Snow White. She's like really fair, and then she has like jet black
I
hair.
know. I see,
Yeah.
if she was sitting right
She's
here,
hysterical.
I'd tell her that she's really
But
funny.
Leslie
Yeah.
Jones always plays an angry woman.
A little stereotypical.
Try being an African American woman in today's society and see how you feel.
Tune in.
A multi-millionaire.
Tune in next time where the topic will be angry black women.